So, when we think about machines, right, our minds usually go to
Yeah.
well, circuits, wires.
Yeah, tangible components, stuff you can, see and measure, powered by energy.
Exactly. But what if a machine didn't need any of that? What if it could be just, say, ink on paper, or maybe even work on pure intention?
That's where our deep dive today really takes a captivating turn. We're stepping into the, frankly, bizarre and utterly fascinating history of Hieronymus machines.
And the elusive world of radionics, too.
Right. It's a journey that definitely blurs the lines between what we call science, the power of belief, and maybe, maybe something else entirely.
And we've pulled together a pretty interesting stack of sources for you on this one. We've got actual U.S. patents. You
We
bet.
do, plus scientific wikis explain the mainstream view, which is, let's put it mildly, skeptical.
Okay, skeptical, and then personal accounts, and some truly, let's just say, wild metaphysical takes as well.
Yeah, some really out there stuff. So our mission really is to unpack these claims, trace their history, look at how science reacted.
Spoiler alert, not always kindly, you said.
That's putting it mildly. And then we'll explore their surprising evolution into these purely symbolic forms. By the end, you might just question what even is a machine.
And what does it actually mean for something to work? That's a big one.
Exactly.
So where does this story kick off? Not in some, dusty old book of secrets, but somewhere much more official. The U.S. Patent Office.
Indeed. Back in 1949, a U.S. patent was granted to a gentleman named Thomas Galen Hieronymus.
And it wasn't for, a better toaster or something mundane?
Definitely not. The patent was officially titled The Detection of Emanations from Materials and Measurement of the Volumes thereof.
Emanations. Okay, that sounds a bit mysterious already. But the real key here, the term he coined, was alloptic energy, right?
Alloptic. A-L-O-P-T-I-C. It's a term that definitely doesn't pop up in standard physics textbooks.
I bet. How did he describe it?
Hieronymus described it as this unique radiation he believed all matter gives off. He thought it combined properties of light. That's the optic part.
Okay, optic for light.
With electricity, which he somehow linked to the L.
Ah, so L for electricity, optic for light. Got it. Kind of merging those concepts. And his main machine, this radiation analyzer, what was that like physically?
It was quite the setup for its time. It had a chamber for the sample, whatever material you were testing, a glass prism,
Okay.
copper wire probe acting like an antenna.
Yeah.
And it was connected to a 3-stage vacuum tube RF amplifier. Think like early radio tech.
Right, vacuum tubes.
And all of this led to a flat metal touch plate.
A touch plate, so you weren't reading a needle on a dial or something?
Nope, no objective reading like that.
How crucial was the human operator then? Seems like
Absolutely central. It fundamentally shifts our idea of measurement, right? From objective to deeply subjective.
How so?
The operator was essential because detection was purely based on a specific sensation they felt on that plate. A tingling, maybe, or a feeling of stickiness. Some even said slight warmth.
That feeling was the signal.
That was the signal that alloptic energy was supposedly detected. It wasn't about reading a number. It was about feeling something specific.
Fascinating. So he's got this patent for a machine based on these very personal, subjective feelings. How did the mainstream scientific world react to this? Were they intrigued by this new form of energy?
Intrigue isn't quite the word I'd use, no.
Okay.
His work was pretty much universally dismissed. Terms like pseudoscience and quackery were, widely used.
Ouch. Those are strong condemnations. What was the fundamental reason for such a definitive rejection? Why so harsh?
Fundamentally, it boils down to this. This alloptic energy has never, ever been detected by any standard scientific instrument, period.
No objective measurement.
Zero verifiable objective evidence that it exists.
Yeah.
And Hieronymus offered no theory that really aligned with known physics or, had a mathematical basis.
So it didn't fit anywhere in the existing framework.
Not at all. So his machines quickly got lumped in with this broader category of devices claiming to work with unseen energies, things that just don't fit into our established scientific understanding.
Right. Which I guess brings us to the wider world of radionics. You hear that term sometimes, also known as electromagnetic therapy or the Abrams method.
That's right. Radionics is sort of the bigger umbrella term here. The general claim is diagnosing and treating diseases using electromagnetic radiation, usually via some kind of electrical device.
And Albert Abrams, the namesake of the Abrams method, he was quite a figure back in the early 1900s, wasn't he? Made a lot of noise.
Oh, he was a real character. Around 1909, 1910, he became a millionaire leasing out his radionic machines.
A millionaire back then from leasing these machines, his claims must have been pretty bold.
Extraordinarily bold. Famously, he claimed he could tell someone's religion just from a single drop of their blood.
Religion from a drop of blood. Okay, I can suddenly see why the American Medical Association labeled him the Dean of Gadget Quacks. That takes some audacity.
Indeed. And it wasn't just name-calling. Scientific American magazine conducted a major investigation back in 1924.
Oh, they got involved. What did they do?
They actually built copies of Abrams' devices based on his schematics and patents and tested them rigorously. Their verdict:
Let me guess. Not good.
utterly useless, they concluded, completely debunked. Pretty definitive language.
So from a scientific standpoint, it was unequivocally rejected. No ambiguity there.
Precisely. Radionics fundamentally flies in the face of basic physics and biology. It's considered pseudoscience, full stop.
And the FDA?
The FDA sees no legitimate medical use for these devices, and studies have consistently shown it's no better than a placebo effect.
Can you walk us through one of his methods, like that blood drop thing you mentioned? It sounds almost like something from a bizarre stage show.
It truly has that feel.
Oh.
Okay, so a popular technique involved taking a drop of a patient's blood on filter paper. Simple enough so far.
Right, filter paper.
That paper would then be attached to one of Abrams' famous black boxes, which he called a dynamizer. Think of it as like a symbolic energy converter in his system, meant to interact with the blood sample.
A dynamizer. Okay, then what?
Wires then connected that box to other boxes, and incredibly, to the forehead of a healthy volunteer.
To the forehead of another person? Why on earth involve a volunteer like that?
The volunteer acted as a proxy, a sort of human instrument, if you will. Abrams would then tap on the volunteer's abdomen.
He'd tap on their stomach?
Yeah, percussion, like doctors sometimes do. And based on the sounds he heard from tapping on the healthy volunteer's abdomen, he claimed to diagnose the disease in the original patient whose blood was on the filter paper.
Wow, it really sounds less like medicine and more like carefully choreographed performance art, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
You can almost picture the scene. The hushed room, maybe some eager patients looking on, and Abrams tapping away. An early 20th century showman blending theater with alleged medicine.
It's quite a picture.
It is. And interestingly, some modern users of radionics kind of acknowledge that the devices themselves might not be doing anything electronically.
Oh, really? So what do they think is happening?
They view them more as focusing tools, like tools for dowsing or for enhancing intuition, almost like a physical anchor for a mental process.
Which actually makes a bit more sense when you hear what investigators found when they actually opened up Abrams' original boxes. I'm guessing they didn't find any groundbreaking hidden technology inside.
You would guess correctly. Reports describe them as, quote, obvious gated collections of wires.
Meaning
Wires that were just cut off or looped back on themselves or connected to absolutely nothing. They were designed to look incredibly intricate and scientific.
But they did nothing electronically.
Absolutely nothing. They were essentially elaborate props, not functional machines in any conventional sense.
So the debunking was clear. Total sham from an electronic perspective. But these ideas, they didn't just disappear then. Did other practitioners pick up his mantle, maybe try to refine these concepts after Abrams died?
Absolutely. After his death in 1924, the field didn't just vanish. Practitioners like Dr. Ruth Drown, for instance, she introduced something called radiotherapy.
Radiotherapy. What were her claims? Still blood drops.
She went even further, boldly claiming her devices could produce actual photographs of internal organs just by tuning into their specific frequencies.
Photographs. Like an X-ray, but without the X-rays.
Kind of. Though, crucially, this was never reliably replicated by independent researchers. Big claims, little proof.
Seems to be a pattern.
It does. And during the 1920s, other devices popped up, like the Pathoclast and Radioclast. These actually incorporated vacuum tubes, supposedly for amplification.
So they were electrical, maybe?
They had electrical components, yes. Yet operators often noted something peculiar. Diagnostic accuracy, they felt, didn't actually depend on the electrical power being on.
Wait, they worked even when unplugged, or the results were the same?
The results were often reported as being the same, powered or not, which hinted early on, maybe unintentionally, at a reliance on something other than electricity. More subtle, non-physical energies, perhaps?
Or maybe just the operator's belief or intuition again. And it even showed up in agriculture, right? That was unexpected.
It did, yeah. Briefly, in the 1950s, a company called Ukoko claimed their radionic devices could kill pests in fields.
Ow! By zapping them with frequencies.
Not quite. The method involved placing pesticide samples and a photograph of the affected field into the device.
A photo. And some pesticide. that sound.
Like sympathetic magic. Exactly. Like trying to influence the field through its image and a related substance. It resembled that more than any known science.
And how did that work out for them?
It was ultimately shut down by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, probably not surprisingly.
Right. So science gives a pretty definitive no to Hieronymus's alloptic energy and Abrams' radionics. Complete dismissal, rigorous debunking. Yet these ideas, they persisted. They didn't just vanish. What do you think is the deeper appeal here? Why wouldn't these concepts just die?
That's a really profound question, isn't it? I think it maybe reveals something fundamental about us, this inclination to seek agency and meaning beyond the conventional, especially when we're faced with complex or scary problems like serious illness.
A desire for control.
Exactly, a desire for control, or perhaps this feeling that there are hidden forces out there, things science just hasn't caught up with yet. These devices, even if disproven scientifically, offered a narrative.
A narrative where the individual has power.
Yes, a narrative where individuals could directly influence their world, their health. That's a powerful, almost primal appeal. It's empowering, even if the basis is questionable.
That's a powerful point. It offers a narrative of empowerment. And this persistence, this refusal to die out, led to a truly unexpected twist in the story. Championed by someone from a completely different field, someone quite famous.
That's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
And the connection is, well, surprising. We're talking about John W. Campbell Jr.
The legendary editor of astounding science fiction, the guy who nurtured Asimov, Heinlein.
The very same, a monumental figure in the golden age of science fiction. And he became a massive supporter of Hieronymus's inventions.
Wow. But Campbell had his own radical theory about how they worked, didn't he? A theory Hieronymus himself, apparently.
Well, hated.
He did. Campbell was completely convinced it wasn't about alloptic energy at all. He didn't buy Hieronymus's physics, fringe or otherwise.
So what did Campbell think was going on?
He believed the machines ran on psionics.
Psionics. Okay, define that for us again in this context, like psychic powers, ESP, mind over matter. Precisely. Pure mental energy. Campbell truly believed you could build a Hieronymus machine, an alloptic receiver, out of almost anything. He suggested cardboard, for instance.
Cardboard?
Or even just drawing the schematic with ink on paper. Powered, he insisted, purely by the user's mind. The psychic intent of the operator was everything.
That's an extraordinary leap. From quasi-physical principles to pure mind power? What was Hieronymus's reported reaction to Campbell essentially saying his invention ran on psychic energy?
Oh, he was reportedly furious. Livid. Hieronymus felt Campbell was dragging his life's work into the realm of the supernatural, the occult.
Undermining his attempt to find real physics.
Exactly. He wanted scientific validation, even if it was fringe science. Campbell's psionics angle completely undercut that. Hieronymus reportedly said Campbell set back the acceptance of my work at least 100 years.
Wow. Strong words.
And he insisted Campbell's drawings, the paper machines, were not worth a tinker's dam for serious research. Just dismissed them entirely.
That is such a fascinating clash, isn't it? You have Hieronymus desperately trying to prove a new physical principle, even getting a patent. And then Campbell, this influential sci-fi editor, comes along and says, no, it's all in your head, but guess what? It still works. It utterly redefines what a machine even means in this context.
It absolutely does. It shifts the entire paradigm from, physical phenomena interacting with a device to subjective consciousness being the device, or at least the power source.
Did Campbell build his own versions based on the psionics theory?
He did. He didn't just theorize. He had what he called a Hieronymus machine type 1, which actually used radio tubes, just like Hieronymus's original.
Okay, so it had physical components.
Yes, but here's the Campbell twist. He claimed it worked perfectly fine, even when it was unplugged.
Wait, it works unplugged, but it still needed intact radio tubes. You couldn't take one out or have a burned out one.
That's what he claimed, which, as you said, makes absolutely no sense electrically whatsoever.
Not at all. It's a complete paradox by conventional radio theory. It defies all electronic logic.
Completely. And then he took it even further with his Type 2 machine.
Which was the paper one.
Which, he said, was almost entirely just ink lines drawn on ordinary paper.
Yeah.
Literally just the schematic itself acting as a machine.
Did anyone else run with this idea, this concept of a purely symbolic machine, just ink on paper?
Yes. Others were inspired. A man named David M. Dressler, who followed Campbell's work, developed what he called a symbolic Type 3 Hieronymus machine.
Type 3, also just ink on paper.
Purely ink on paper, just the schematic. No samples needed, no power source, no physical input at all, just the drawing.
But, and this is the kicker, operators still reported feeling sensations. The same kind of tingling or heat that Hieronymus's users felt.
Exactly. The same kinds of tactile sensations, tingling, heat, vibrations, just like with Hieronymus's original physical machine.
That's bizarre.
But here's the truly intriguing part, Dressler reported. He claimed the sensations weren't just random. They're apparently felt only at specific settings on the drawn dial on the paper.
On a paper dial, so you'd point your finger, or maybe a stylus, to a number on the drawing, and only then feel something, not just random feelings.
That's what Dressler claimed. That implies some kind of consistent, non-random response, even with just paper.
Did he try to test that?
He did. He even conducted an experiment back in 1958, reportedly with about 100 random people. He reported that they consistently felt sensations at the same specific dial settings on the paper machine.
100 people, all feeling something at the same points on a drawing.
According to his report, yes. He argued it showed something non-random was definitely happening, even if there was no conventional scientific explanation for it. A real puzzle.
This is truly pushing the definition of machine, isn't it? From vacuum tubes and touch plates to ink on paper causing consistent subjective feelings. Where does this concept go next? Does it connect to more modern metaphysical ideas, the kind of stuff we see today?
It absolutely does. This concept evolves directly into what people now often call symbolic radionics, and it moves beyond just ink drawings. Crystals start playing a very significant role.
Ugh, crystals. Okay, I was wondering when they'd show up. How do they fit into this symbolic, intention-based idea?
Well, modern symbolic radionics is deeply rooted in sort of esoteric practices and metaphysical traditions. The focus shifts completely away from electronics, away from optic energy, and really towards amplifying intention.
So the goal is amplifying the user's thoughts or desires.
Exactly. These setups are sometimes called psychic amplifiers or intention engines. The components, usually crystals, are chosen for their symbolic meaning, what they're believed to represent or do energetically. They're thought to resonate with and boost the user's focus and will.
And clear quartz often seems central to these setups. You see it everywhere in these contexts. Why clear quartz specifically?
Clear quartz is usually considered the manifestation core. In metaphysical circles, it's widely regarded as a versatile amplifier. The belief is you can store energy, focus it, and transmit it using clear quartz.
Almost like it's programmable.
That's the idea. Programmable with intention. The user focuses, meditates, visualizes, or maybe even writes their intention down and places it with the quartz.
And the quartz amplifies and projects this intention somehow.
That's the belief. It's typically placed right at the core of the setup, maybe on what's sometimes called a witness plate, which might hold a sample related to the intention, like hair or a photo, echoing those older practices.
Okay, so clear quartz is the amplifier. What about selenite? You see that used a lot too, often alongside quartz.
Right. Selenite often acts as the charging and cleansing component. It's believed to have a very high vibration, metaphysically speaking.
High vibration means cleansing.
Yes, and the ability to cleanse and charge other crystals, keeping them energetically pure. So it's like a battery and a purifier combined in this view.
How is it typically used in these setups?
Selenite wands or plates are often arranged geometrically around the clear quartz. The idea is to create a kind of self-sustaining energy loop that keeps the quartz boosted and maybe shields it from unwanted interference.
So if there's no electricity involved, no detectable alloptic energy, what's actually making these symbolic crystal setups work from this perspective? What's the power source?
That's the crucial shift in thinking. In this paradigm, it all comes down to the user. Their mind, their belief, their clarity of intention, that's the engine.
It's the person doing it, not the crystals themselves.
The focus they bring when they program that quartz, the emotional energy they invest, that's seen as key. Regular energetic maintenance of the setup, like cleansing the crystals, is also considered important. The user's own belief and resonance with the whole process are thought to strengthen the connection.
So the physical setup, the crystals, the layout, maybe even drawing symbols, it's really just a focusing tool for the person's mind and intention. The power isn't inherent in the object itself.
That's the essence of the theory, yes. The entire system, the chosen crystals acting as symbols, perhaps even echoing those original ink drawings in their schematic nature, is meant to harmonize the user's intent with subtle energies, or what some might call crystalline intelligence.
It becomes a coherent symbolic engine.
Exactly. Where the fuel is the user's focus and belief. The machine is essentially the interface between the user's mind and whatever subtle reality they're trying to influence.
It's fascinating how the concept transformed, and within this world of crystals, there are even more specific types thought to do different things, right? You mentioned a particular kind of selenite before we started recording.
Ah, yes, hourglass selenite. It's a rarer form, naturally occurring, with a distinct hourglass-shaped inclusion inside the crystal.
An hourglass shape. What's the thinking behind using that specifically?
Metaphysically, it's often linked to the earth element, partly because of its appearance and how it forms. The idea is that it combines selenite's usual cleansing properties with the more stabilizing grounding influence.
Grounding, as in making things more solid or real.
Sort of. Supposedly enhancing the flow between the spiritual or intentional realms and the material world, making the connection more robust.
Okay, so how would using hourglass selenite specifically change how one of these symbolic radionic machines is thought to work compared to regular selenite?
Well, proponents suggest its earth connection helps to anchor the intentions, the ones being amplified by the quartz, more firmly into the physical world.
Anchoring them for tangible results.
That's the claim. That it can lead to more tangible results, maybe making real-world manifestations happen faster or more reliably. Some also link its hourglass shape to time itself,
Like regulating time.
suggesting it might be particularly effective for intentions tied to specific timelines, or for encouraging gradual, steady progress towards a goal. It's seen as kind of prioritizing physical outcomes, health, money, relationships, over more abstract spiritual goals.
Interesting. So it adds a grounding, materializing aspect to the intention amplification. That's quite a specific nuance within this symbolic system.
It is. That's the idea anyway. Balancing the high-frequency energy of intention and quartz with grounding, stabilizing the entire setup. You might swap out regular selenite for hourglass selenite in the same geometric arrangement, or just use one key piece.
But it always comes back to the user being central.
Always. It's consistently described as a co-creative process. It emphasizes the user's active role, dedicating time to program the quartz with focused, emotionally charged intention, keeping the machine in a quiet, dedicated space, maybe cleansing the crystals periodically under moonlight or with sound bowls. It's very participatory.
Now, it's important to track how this evolution happened beyond just Abrams and Campbell, too. You mentioned other practitioners refined the ideas.
Absolutely. Following Abrams' death, people like Dr. Ruth Drown, whom we mentioned with the photo claims, and Dr. William H. McGuckin kept developing the concepts. And crucially, as we discussed, those devices from the 1920s sometimes reportedly worked even without electrical power.
Right, that unplugged factor.
That hinted early on, even if they didn't fully embrace it then, at a reliance on something non-physical. The seed for a symbolic or energetic interpretation was already there.
So the seed for this symbolic shift was already planted early on. When did it really start to embrace more overtly spiritual or metaphysical concepts?
That seems to have accelerated with a significant shift in the 1970s and 80s. This was largely influenced by figures like Dr. David Tansley.
Tansley. What did he bring to it?
He began consciously integrating Eastern metaphysical concepts, things like chakras, subtle energy bodies, into radionic framework. This really expanded radionics beyond just diagnosing and treating physical disease.
Moving into emotional, mental, spiritual realms.
Exactly. He started framing it as a truly holistic practice, attempting to bridge the gap between, well, fringe science and spirituality.
And then Dr. Bruce Copen, he also played a role, establishing Bruce Copen Laboratories.
Yes, Copen furthered this evolution. He developed more advanced instruments, including supposedly the first color healing device back in the 1960s, and explored ideas around quantum medicine and bioresonance. These developments helped normalize the integration of less conventional concepts.
So all this laid the groundwork for the transition towards manifestation-focused radionics.
Pretty much. That really gained momentum with the rise of the New Age and general metaphysical movements towards the end of the 20th century. Concepts like orgone energy, Wilhelm Reich's controversial idea of a universal life force, got folded in.
And the idea that intention itself could shape reality.
That became central. Practitioners started using radionic devices not just for healing ailments, but explicitly for manifesting desires, things like wealth, relationships, success.
So the key distinction here is that classic radionics, even if pseudoscientific, aim to diagnose and treat physical problems, whereas this newer manifestation radionics uses the devices primarily to harness energy to project intentions, aligning much more closely with something like the law of attraction.
That's a very good summary of the shift. And you see modern examples explicitly called things like digital quantum radionics manifestation devices. Devices designed specifically to amplify and broadcast intentions out into the universe, so to speak.
Digitally even, wow.
Precisely. This whole shift happened for several converging reasons, really. Consistent scientific rejection pushed radionics further into alternative and metaphysical communities.
Where it found a more receptive audience.
Exactly. The rise of New Age spirituality provided fertile ground for these ideas. Plus, the devices themselves always had this sort of technological mystique, didn't they?
Yeah, wires, dials, even crystals arranged like circuits.
It bridges technology and mysticism in an appealing way. And finally, that holistic expansion broadened its scope way beyond just physical health, making it relevant to almost any life goal.
What an absolutely incredible journey this has been, seriously. We started with Thomas Hieronymus, getting a U.S. patent for his machine, detecting this elusive alloptic energy.
Which science quite roundly dismissed as pseudoscience.
Right. Then we moved to Albert Abrams, the broader, often notorious world of radionics, those thoroughly debunked black boxes.
And the truly memorable, almost legendary blood drop religion test. A classic case of pseudoscience getting called out.
Definitely. And then that massive pivot with John Campbell, the sci-fi guru, who essentially threw out the physics and said, forget all that, it's psionics, it's pure mind power.
Which led directly to these bizarre but fascinating machines made of just ink drawings on paper. A radical shift.
From physical apparatus, however flawed, to pure symbolism. Which brings us all the way, somehow, to modern symbolic radionics, using crystals as intention amplifiers, seemingly powered mostly by belief and focus. It's just an extraordinary arc.
It really is. A truly fascinating trip through these overlapping ideas where science and pseudoscience, the physical object, and the purely symbolic meaning, they just keep intertwining in these really thought-provoking ways.
It says a lot about how we try to make sense of reality, doesn't it? And maybe how we try to influence it, or wish we could.
It really does. Which perhaps leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over.
Yeah.
If the effectiveness of these symbolic machines, these crystal setups, these ink drawings, if it truly does hinge so heavily on the user, on your intention, your belief, your focus.
Then what does that actually suggest about reality itself?
Right. And maybe more pointedly, what does this suggest about your own role or perhaps your own power within that reality?
Could it be that the machine, whatever form it takes, wires, paper, crystals, is ultimately just a focusing tool, a symbolic interface for something much deeper?
Something happening entirely within the human mind, perhaps, but maybe with real effects out in the world.
What does that possibility mean for you? Definitely something
right.
to think about.